to say goodbye.
Hi, I'm David Loving. Now, before I get into the design of this small AM broadcast transmitter, I feel the need to emphasize the importance of radio back at its start. I thought it was interesting how the evolution of radio happened, but I'll be quick. Now, today it's kind of rare that families get together and do something quietly in the house, but a long time ago, people used to go to the living room after the dinner was finished and the dishes done. They would listen to the radio. Dad might be smoking a pipe, mom knitting, needle point, whatever, and the kids would be on the floor. But they'd listen to programs that got their attention. They didn't have TV, or it was the beginning of television. They were expensive. They weren't that good. There wasn't a TV guide, to show you. They didn't have satellites. So people listened to the radio, and their imaginations took over. They listened to programs like The Shadow. My dad, his brother and sister would get in front of the radio and listen to old scary shows. I don't think they had television yet. And I had to write it down. It was a phrase, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of man? The shadow knows. And then there's this maniacal laugh after that. I'm not a maniacal person, I can't do that laugh, but he would give it a shot, and of course it sounded like my dad, so it was pretty hilarious. But they listened to programs like Your Hit Parade, 0 Hour, The Inner Sanctum, Murder at Midnight, The Hall of Fantasy, The Shadow People, Whisper. Some guy had something wrong with his voice, so he talked really quietly. I guess that can be spooky. They had stories of Sherlock Holmes, the Lone Ranger. Maybe they had soap operas, romance things for the moms. But radio was very important back then. Not so much today, because we have information overload and everybody has a short attention span. Now, who remembers hearing about Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater Group in New York City, CBS, 1938? Now, they were going over H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, but they had to do all the sound effects. And back then, they were pretty good with their Foley stuff. They had guns and they had sirens and people rustling and crowds and everything. So, of course, back then, 1938, they announced that they were doing this. It was a radio play. They started off with Tchaikovsky #1 or something. And then they broke in like a news special report. Ships coming down in, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. And of course, this is being broadcast from New York City, so they knew New Jersey, it's just across the river. So they made it sound very real. They scared a lot of people. And the next day, Orson Welles had to do a press conference and explain why the team did their radio play the way they did. And he caught some flack for that, but of course that's history, and it was fantastic. People were running around outside, calling the police, driving around looking for aliens, getting guns and stuff. It was great. So that's 1938. So that emphasizes the importance of broadcast radio. Now let's go back a little further. What about 1886, 1888? In Germany, Heinrich Hertz. Now remember Hertz? You see it on your radios, kilohertz, megahertz. Well, that's from this Heinrich guy. Very young, very smart. He made a spark gap transmitter. Sources say it was like 50 megahertz, I guess, depending on the gap. I don't know what, spark gap is pretty primitive electromagnetic radiation. It covers a lot of bands, so I don't know how they determined it was 50 megahertz. This is Germany's. Saw no use. He said he saw no use for radio waves. He did some experiments and took some notes and built this spark gap transmitter, and that was about it. He was a professor. He was very young. I think he died at age 36. He had a lot of migraines, he had headaches, so he got some infection and that killed him. Age 36. Heinrich Hertz, Germany. Okay. We go to Italy. Now in Italy we have Marconi. Now everybody knows about Marconi. First guy that got credit for making a real radio transmission. This guy was, 1895? He was about 20 years old. He did some experiments. He developed a radio that could transmit Morse code 2 or 3 miles. He discovered it went further when he actually grounded part of the antenna and the negative side of the transmitter. I can attest to that. That's really important. So, age 21, he says, "Mom, I need to go to England to get a patent and get some more money for all my experiments." So, Marconi and his mom go to England, and they stop at customs. Customs opens up Marconi's box and bags of radio parts, and they think it might be bomb related, so they destroy it. Can you imagine that? You go all the way on a ship over to England, and customs guys destroy your whole experiment, and that's why you went on this trip to begin with. So anyway, he had enough pieces and notes, and he eventually got his patent and some money for more experiments. And he was eventually transmitting across the Atlantic to someone, I think, in Massachusetts. Enough of this fantastic information, and let's get to an AM broadcast transmitter and the stages of this transmitter. All right. A few days later. With this 1.54 megahertz AM broadcast transmitter, I did earlier have a transistor amp for the FET mic element, but actually it works better without that. As you can see, it's the two lead type, 2 wires. Sometimes you get the ones that are 3. So I bought a lot of these 2-wire FET mics, elements. And anyway, I found another schematic for a microphone element going into a 386. And it works great. Good bass level for such a tiny little microphone. And I didn't even add the resistor capacitor to increase the bass. So it may work out. It's just a hobby transmitter around the house. Okay, anyway, back to this. Ramble too much? First section, microphone audio amplification. You have two elements. As with a radio station, you're going to have voice and music. So the same with this one. Let me grab my weak coffee since I drink too much coffee. You go to the doctor and they go, I only drink 1 cup of coffee a day, and you're going, right. Anyway, for voice, that's obvious over here. That goes down to a 1 meg pot. And then down here, that's my music source, a CD player, and I use the headphone jack. Of course, you have to take apart a connector. Okay, so out of the headphones, I found the left channel, the right channel, and out of each cable, of course, there were 2 wires. 2 of those wires were ground, and the other 2 were each channel. After scraping the wires, made sure I had a good electrical connection. I twisted the wires together, the ground wires, and soldered them. And then I also soldered the left channel and right channel. And those I will attach wires and stick in the proto board. In the background, you can see here's the stereo jack. This part towards the plastic, that's ground. Then you have 1 channel and then the other channel. I can't remember what's what, and it really doesn't matter at this point. Down here, I have 2 1 microfarad capacitors. One is for the left, one is for the right. And I forgot to show the ground, but there you have 3 leads, usually. And of course the ground connects to the ground on this circuit here, 9 volt or like a AC power supply, well filtered. Anyway, that gets to the circuit board and goes to excuse me, that goes to pin 3. So you have 2 connections to pin 3. One is from your music source and the other is through a potentiometer and the microphone. So you're going to turn the potentiometer one way for music and then the other way for microphone, but you have to turn down the music if you want to hear the voice. So this 1 meg pot is really like a mixer. There's different ways to do this. On a big soundboard, you can have slider pots. One is for the microphone, you hear, you don't hear. Music, you hear, you don't hear. And of course you're looking at your sound levels. Probably LEDs by now, but so this is the audio section right here. Audio. Here is the oscillator section. Okay, and then over here is the low pass filter. And then down here is the VU meter amp. and this is the second version. The first version worked okay, just spider web, point-to-point wiring. That worked. It looked terrible. And then I tried it on a circuit board and it didn't work. Crazy. So I had to find another one. Anyway, the audio comes in, is amplified by the 386, comes off pin 5, and it goes through this inductor. Now you're asking, why do you have an inductor there? Well, I tried going right from pin 5 over to the emitter to amplitude modulate the oscillator this way, not frequency shift, not pulling it off of frequency, but this is a crystal oscillator. So the crystal is going to oscillate at 1.54 megahertz. Maybe you can get a harmonic out of that too. But anyway, I tried capacitors, various resistors, and I found that you can use inductors. I'm not quite sure how the inductor works in this case. It could be it isolates the audio from the RF, but it sounds better. This inductor sounds better than a capacitor. And then this value, 470 microhenries, sounds better than 10 microhenries or 100 microhenries or something bigger. So there's something scientific about it. Okay, so this is your oscillator, crystal oscillator. It's using a 300 microhenry inductor. Now, if you change this crystal like something higher, like 4, 5, 10, 12, 20, you're going to have to change this inductor. You're going to have to go smaller in value for this to oscillate and have a really nice, good-looking sine wave for your oscillator output. Also, earlier I did have a fixed value cap here, 0.002. I discovered if I put in a variable, in this case, it's marked 100 picofarad, but it may go down to 20. I'm not sure. But that really helped the sine wave look good, cleaned it up, and got a little more amplitude peak to peak out of that 1.54 megahertz. Okay, this is the emitter resistor. It's a 50 ohm 1 watt. It does get hot, be careful. This transistor looks like a TO92 but tall. I forgot what it's called. Various ones, it's a 1 watt NPN. You can experiment there. Of course, you can put all this on a proto board, the ones where you plug in little things, and it will still work fine at this frequency. This frequency is low enough where things don't get too squirrely. I wouldn't use a proto board for anything over 10 megahertz or so. Maybe, yeah, 10, or definitely not anything trying to get FM broadcast. Man, that you get close to your circuit and your frequency moves away and your antenna and it's a pain in the ass. So anyway, this is your oscillator here. Parallel to the inductor, I have it listed as a 360 picofarad, but really I put in a cube type variable cap you see in transistor radios. Got a good deal on those, and they have so many flat leads coming out, you have to find two that really go through the frequencies to help peak that. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, why are you using something variable when you have a fixed crystal? Well, anything you add to an oscillator is like it either helps it or it loads it down or something. So maybe this inductor isn't quite the perfect inductor for 1.54 megahertz, but you get it to oscillate. Well, this will bring it closer so you can peak your sine wave. So experiment with that. If you can get a fixed value and it works fine, that's great. This is all hobby, and I learn something every time I build one of these. This is probably the 10th, 15th AM transmitter I've built, but this one is kind of different because I'm doing two things, music and voice. Okay, cutoff filter. This is very important. Oscillator. To turn an oscillator into a transmitter, all you have to do is add a wire, add an antenna, and you have a transmitter. Hey! So what are you going to do? There's different ways to modulate. AM, amplitude modulation, goes like this. You rectify it, turn it into sound, and it goes to a speaker and a sound. FM, you have a tank circuit and you pull it off of the fundamental frequency like this, pull it off, and there's different weird, crazy ways to modulate. You can send out little burst packages of information, data, or you can do frequency shifting, like in ECM where the radar jumps around, so it's hard to jam. Well, this is just a basic AM. Simple, and it was testing me this time. This is like the 5th or 6th video for this circuit because I thought I was almost ready to put this on YouTube and the voice part crapped out, or it didn't quite sound good, or it looked good but it didn't sound good, or I had the oscilloscope probe on the circuit, everything looked good, then I unhooked the oscilloscope probe and I lost the signal. So I learned something every time I goof around in the garage. Anyway, cutoff filter. It's a low pass filter. Passes the low and it cuts off the higher frequencies, and that's where your harmonics are. So your fundamental is 1.54. Then your first harmonic is 2 times that, which is 3 something, and then the next harmonic is 3 times 1.54, and then the next one is 4.1.54, and so on and all the way down. But one good thing is that these harmonics will taper off and die way out there. But some of you know that RF engineers will have an oscillator and they will build a tank circuit out here to grab or pass one of those harmonics, and then the next stage would be an amplifier. So they have an oscillator, and usually it doesn't happen with a crystal, it's like inductors. They have an oscillator and then they select a harmonic, and that's what they use. Pretty smart, these guys. Not like me. This is about as high-tech as I get. Okay, so you're cutting off harmonics. You need to have this. Do this. Do not let your harmonics go out and interfere with people's radio reception, TV reception, anything. You can't cause interference with reception or transmission. That's against the FCC rules, and it's just being a nice person. Common courtesy. Do not mess with other people's electronics. 8-foot antenna. Now, I did have one antenna that went straight up, a nice vertical with an extension cord, probably 8 foot vertical. It goes up into the rafters in the garage. Once I tweaked everything and peaked it out, I guess the RF was getting into the CD player. Excuse me. And it was changing the programming. Instead of program or song 1, it would go all the way to the end and then shut off and stop the CD. It didn't do that at first, and it started doing it when I fixed everything. So I had to move the antenna or select another antenna, which is probably a 6-foot single wire, stiff solid core wire, maybe 3 feet away. It's still a vertical, but it kind of starts off curved and then it goes vertical. And that works fine. It sounds good. Waveform looks a little like a shark's tooth instead of a sine wave coming off of the low pass filter. I can pick it up around the outside of the house, but it dies a little further out, closer to the wall. And now from space. The circle around the house is the approximate range of the AM broadcast transmitter. Sounds good in the house. Now the VU meter. At first I had it connected after the inductor, and I did not get a lot of needle deflection with the voice or music. So I moved it over here to basically pin 5, and I got full deflection, you know, without damaging the meter. So that looks nice. Earlier experiments, I had the VU meter wrapped around the beginning of the antenna. Just one turn, because more turns it would pick up more RF, and I would peg and slap that needle over. And so that was too much, and I said, well, maybe I'm robbing the transmitter of power, and I should go back over here and just sample the audio just for it to look cool. I don't need this meter, you know. And then for a day I had this diode in backwards. So another lesson here, if something doesn't work, maybe it's time to take a break. Just stop, turn off the soldering iron, shut down things, stretch, go in the backyard, enjoy the backyard. Okay, well that felt good. All right, so I came back in and I looked at the schematic, and then I looked at my circuit, and I looked at the schematic again, and I looked at the circuit, and I went, my God, the diode is in backwards. That diode, well, no wonder it's not going to rectify anything. How long was that there? Why did I do that? So I must have been tired, or I had distractions, or I have people coming in here. I have dogs that want to come in, then they want to go out, and then, you know, and then I have to drink coffee, or I have sneeze and I get a runny nose. That's good coffee, even though it's weak. So anyway, the VU meter, this is the second one, as I said before. And this works. I built its own circuit board, which is right under the meter. So nothing high-tech with the antenna connection. It's just a wire with an alligator on it. So I can move the transmitter around and then clip it to a wire. This is just for the house. It is a hobby AM transmitter. Again, if you build this for kid, well, what kid would be interested in this stuff? I don't know. But again, if you wanted to, Halloween is coming up. It's almost middle of September. So if you wanted to broadcast scary stories over the radio, you could do it with this. Just like Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater people, you could have your kids over and they could do Foley sounds, maybe as a Halloween event, reenact something scary, and you could have people in charge of popping balloons, clopping coconut shells for horses galloping, crowds, sound, kazoos and everything. Just an idea. I don't do that anymore. I used to build all kinds of Halloween stuff, and then it was too rough on my back, and I had to go to Texas for back surgery. Anyway. But it's just another crazy hobby. 9 volts, has a battery, and I did notice when I connected a variable AC to DC power supply to this at 9 volts. Of course, the 9 volt battery was just a little low, but not much. But it was the supply of current to this circuit, this transmitter. I did notice when I connected the variable power supply that the signal to the radio at the other end of the garage, the audio coming out of there got louder, and it still sounded good. So that told me that that little 9 volt battery could not supply enough current for this circuit. So if you build this or any circuit, maybe consider either 2 batteries in parallel if it's still a 9 volt circuit, or build yourself a bench top power supply and run this transmitter off of that, because it sounded better. And then my wife came in and said, "That's awfully loud." This is my space, and she comes in and So anyway, I had a lot of fun with this. That's it. Audio, voice, music, the oscillator, harmonics, suppression, antenna. Keep that short. You don't want to interfere with your neighbors listening to things or airplanes going over. And then a VU meter was like an added element. You really don't need this, but it was cool watching that needle move around. And you can find a good CD player or some music source that works. Not all do. And that's it. I do have another circuit I used instead of good crystals. I use those IF filters, the 455 little orange or yellow filters for your IF. Well, you can get those at different frequencies, and then you can get them for AM, which are lower, 455, 500, and then you can find them for FM and other weird radio circuits. So look around on the internet. those little resonators are not the same material as a good quality oscillator crystal. They're made of something else I can't remember, but they still oscillate, but not as well. I noticed the signal isn't as strong, but you can get, hundreds and hundreds of these little things if you're doing hobby projects with oscillators, learning oscillators. You have a classroom of people that have to build some kind of oscillator that, of course, would be a cheaper alternative. If it all comes down to how good it sounds, you better go with the better product. But if you put a capacitor on the collector of that oscillator down to ground, it clamps it to whatever's marked on your resonator. So, okay, that's it. Enjoy. I'm going to finish my coffee here. Okay, bye. Good morning, it's 4 a.m. and currently 65 degrees in Rio Rancho. Home to Dave's Garage Radio, where if it's news, we'll never know. Our sponsor is Rudy's Rubber Rafts. If you're ready for a raft, Rudy has the best rafts around. Now back to Dave's Garage Radio. Thank you for listening this morning. We'll begin with something in D minor on piano. The next hour is sponsored by Mikey's Coffee House. That's good coffee. Oi, have you seen me socks? I lost a pair of socks here. And now back to our music.